Hello everyone and welcome back to Destiny. Today I have a few pieces of Destiny 2 news that I want to talk about, and it centers around the release dates for both the base game and Destiny 2's first raid. There are some interesting details to go over, including when we can expect the raid, as well as what we can expect from the raid from a thematic standpoint. Raids are some of the most rewarding experiences in Destiny, and I'm sure you, just like me, are very anxious to learn as much about it as possible. So without further ado, let's jump into it. This video is sponsored by LootCrate.com. Stick around to the end of the video to learn more about how you can save 10% off a new subscription. So we got a bit more insight about the recent changes for the release of the game from Friday, September 8th to Wednesday, September 6th. Before, we weren't really given a reason for the change, but now we know why. In an interview with Italian game news site multiplayer.it, Luke Smith stated, "Usually, Bungie games, but more generally, most of the titles released to the market, have the largest number of contemporary users on Saturdays after launch. For this reason, instead of distributing the game on Friday as originally expected, we had the opportunity to anticipate the launch for a few days so it could handle traffic more gradually and help keep servers under control to optimize them to a maximum view of the first weekend." Now, this was a bit of a rough translation since the interview was in Italian, but essentially it means that they want to soften the blow of having too many players trying to log on at the same time. They know that the super fans, like me, will be playing the game at launch regardless of when in the week it is, and they want to lighten the load before the weekend comes. I mean, the first thing I did when I heard the new release date was adjust the vacation days I submitted to my day job. Nothing is going to stop me playing this game right at launch. Now, last week they implemented the server queue system so that servers don't crash during peak times, and moving the launch away from the weekend will also help a great deal. Next, we learned a little bit more about the raid, which will be launching with Destiny 2. In the same Italian interview, Luke Smith got to talking about the general theme of the raid and when we can expect it. We learned that while we don't yet have an exact date for when the Destiny 2 vanilla raid will launch, we can expect it during the launch window, which unfortunately doesn't really give us much more information. I mean, that was sort of expected. Luke Smith stated, "What I can tell you is that the first raid has a release date very similar to that of King's Fall and Wrath of the Machine. We will announce this date later and will be a date that will allow players to be powerful enough to face their challenge. We just have to wait this summer and make it known." Now again, another rough translation, but essentially this means that we will be learning the official date of the raid later in the summer, and they want to make sure that most players can become strong enough to face the raid, which is undoubtedly the game's most difficult activity. In the past, King's Fall and Wrath, which were specifically mentioned, launched on the Friday immediately after launch. But if it's the same with Destiny 2, that would only give players 2 days to level up enough to face the raid. I don't believe they would do that for this release simply because we would have even less time than usual in a game where we have to start from scratch, and we would have like a day and a half to reach the recommended light or level, and not to mention have good enough gear to take it on. Vault of Glass launched both normal and hard modes a week after launch, releasing on that first reset, so it's possible we'll see that again, but Luke did specifically call out King's Fall and Wrath, which makes me think it'll be in fact a Friday release, so I suppose that we will simply have to wait and see. I personally think it will launch the following Friday from launch, giving people 8 or 9 days to prep. I would much rather this be the case so that we don't have to rush through the content. Now, when asked about what we can expect from the raid experience, Luke Smith had this to say. Again translated, he states, "The Vault of Glass is a raid that separates people before reuniting them. Crota's End is a raid that had a kind of memory built around the hero who will use the sword. King's Fall is a raid that will be remembered for absurd jigsaw puzzles, and Wrath of the Machine is a fully fledged action-packed encounter. With the 5th raid, what we wanted to accomplish is something that players can feel and perceive as a real place." This is a very interesting detail, and that may suggest a few things about the raid. First, he referred to as Destiny's 5th raid, perhaps suggesting that the overall design philosophy of the raid will remain intact. They're not going to massively overhaul what you can expect from a raid experience, like these sectioned encounters, puzzles, bosses, and the themed mechanics. Now, him stating that they want players to feel and perceive the raid as a real place sort of makes it sound like the raid will be taking place on Earth. In fact, I believe the raid may in fact take place in the last city. In Destiny 2, Bungie wants us to get a real sense of what we're fighting for, and what better way to do that than to have us fight the ultimate challenge in that space. Also, we still don't have any other evidence of us entering the last city for anything else in the game. The social space is in the European Dead Zone, and Luke Smith has confirmed that there will be only a single social space, so that sort of rules out the city becoming one later on. So yeah, I think having the raid take place within the last city would be the most emotionally impactful. Now, that also sounds like the raid may feature more environmental mechanics and puzzles, perhaps making the city feel more like its own character and significant to the raid as well. I'm thinking of the Death Zamboni section of Wrath, where we had that incredible set piece atop the Cosmodrome wall. Either way, it looks like they want to make the raid super epic while maintaining the emotional connection we have to where it's taking place. But of course, that is a wild guess, and you should take all of that with a grain of salt. What do you think this means for Destiny 2's first raid ever, and where do you think it'll take place? Leave your thoughts in the comments. And also, before I release you to your various barbecues and pool parties, I want to tell you a little bit more about my new sponsor, LootCrate.com. I'm very excited to have them as my sponsor because I'm a huge collectibles nerd, and the prospect of getting exclusive stuff in a loot box to me every month for under $20 makes me pretty excited. Not to mention, you can get 10% off if you use my promo code. Visit www.trylootcrate.com/futurefoe and enter code BRIDGE10 to lock in that savings. Support the channel and support LootCrate.com. Anyways, drop a like if you enjoyed this video and subscribe for more Destiny content. Have a very happy 4th of July for those of you in the US, and I will see you all next time.